John Wick Chapter 4 is anticipated to deliver breathtaking fight scenes, building on the franchise's reputation for intense and masterfully choreographed action. With Keanu Reeves reprising his role as the skilled assassin, expect a seamless blend of martial arts, gunplay, and strategic combat, creating an adrenaline-pumping cinematic experience that fans of the series have come to love. Horse One of the biggest ways that John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum upped the ante from the prior films by introducing animals into the action sequences. Sophia's Halle Berry, two attack dogs provided one of the film's standout action sequences. But horses were also used to great effect in a fight in a stable and a subsequent chase sequence through the streets. Chapter 4 keeps the animal action going and features a return of both horse and dog-based combat. The new dog, owned by Mr. Nobody Shemire Anderson, lives up to the high bar set for canine carnage by the previous film, but the horse combat does not. The first taste of action in Chapter 4 comes via a horse chase through the desert on John's way to the Elder. Sadly, it pales in comparison to the horse-based action of Chapter 3. The horse usage is far more standard as opposed to the creative gags devised for Chapter 3. As the opening action sequence of the film, it does not get things started with a bang. The big issues with this scene are that is it over too quickly, and that it doesn't showcase anything that wasn't already included and executed better in the prior movie. Luckily, the action gets significantly bigger and more impressive from this point on. It's easy to consider this action scene as just a little taste of what's to come to ease back into the world of John Wick. Berlin. When John needs a family crest to challenge the Marquis to a duel, he finds himself heading to Berlin, Germany, to meet with the Ruska Roma. In order for them to accept him into the family, he first needs to assassinate Killa, Scott Adkins, who killed the former head of the Ruska Roma. Before John can take out Killa, he is required to first engage in an extended fight scene with the numerous armed thugs in his casino and adjoining nightclub. These thugs use guns, like most of the enemies in the John Wick series, but they also fight with intimidating axes, which helps keep things fresh. The location is a standout element of this sequence as the packed dance floor, raining water fixtures from the ceiling, and vibrant neon lighting all contribute to the visually stimulating nature of the action. The fight itself is solid, but it is held back quite a bit by its purpose and the plot being far less compelling than the motivations behind most of the action scenes in the series. To put it simply, the action is strong, but it feels unnecessary in this instance. And in a film that is nearly 3 hours long and can be a little exhausting, this might be one fight scene too many. John vs. Killa. After John successfully takes out Killa's retinue of henchmen, it's time to fight the big guy one-on-one. Just like with the casino/nightclub action scene, this fight is also held back by the fact that it feels like an unnecessary diversion from the main plot in an already overstuffed movie. If you can overlook that one hang-up, the fight itself is otherwise great. Internationally acclaimed martial artist, Scott Adkins makes quite a transformation for the role of Killa. His usual chiseled physique is hidden underneath prosthetics and a fat suit, and he incorporates the character's weight and asthma into his fighting style. Keanu Reeves vs. Scott Adkins is a matchup of action legends that was always bound to be crowd-pleasing. For some action fanatics, the one-on-one fight between the two of them may be a bit too brief to fully deliver on the expectations that such a clash could entail. Kung Fu fans hoping for a rematch between Adkins and Donnie Yen after their clash in Ip Man 4, the finale in 2019, may walk away a bit disappointed as well. The two share the screen once again and exchange heated words but don't exchange many blows directly. Yen fights off several of Killa's henchmen, but the violence against Killa himself is largely handled by Mr. Wick Solo. Car, few just like how the horse and dog combat from the previous movies returned in John Wick Chapter 4, so did the car combat. Car Fu was used for standout sequences in the first and second John Wick movies, but took a breather in Chapter 3 to allow for motorcycle action to take center stage instead. Chapter 4 puts Mr. Wick back behind the wheel of a muscle car during the Paris portion. He also hops back on a motorcycle for one great stunt, where he sends a wheelie in bike, smashing into a Paris thug at top speed. This time around, the Car Fu choreography retreads some action beats from the past movies. This has the potential to be a larger problem than it is, as the sequence avoids feeling too stale by throwing in just enough new ideas. Keanu Reeves doing much of his own stunt driving throughout the series significantly elevates all of the vehicular combat. The standout moment this time around is when John pulls off an extended drift and guns down an entire cluster of enemies as he circles around them repeatedly. Many of the other beats are things fans of the series will have already seen before. These repeated moments mostly retain their punch, but they don't feel as fresh as the action outside of the motor vehicles. Kane vs. Shimazu. Practically all of the action in the John Wick series has involved the titular character directly, but Chapter 4 switches things up by having multiple action sequences that John isn't even present for. Luckily, the new characters are interesting and compelling enough to keep viewers invested even when the main character isn't in the picture. It is also a nice departure to see different fighting styles squaring off, which offers a welcome contrast to John's familiar fighting style. After Akira, Rina Sawayama has been wounded. Her father Shimazu, Hiroyuki Sanada, stays true to his promise to John and puts his life on the line to keep Kane, Donnie Yen, at bay, who is a mutual friend of both of them but is forced to do the Marquis's bidding. Honoring the classic samurai films that inspired the Osaka portion of Chapter 4, Shimazu and Kane have a one-on-one sword duel that mixes contemplative stillness with sudden bursts of violent motion. Kane's blindness and unique fighting style are both incorporated well into the choreography, and the fact that he desperately doesn't want to have to kill Shimazu adds an interesting dimension to the sword fight. It is clear that Kane is holding back, but he is such a vastly superior swordsman that Shimazu doesn't stand a chance anyway. Kane tries more than once to convince Shimazu to simply walk away with his life intact. But Shimazu refuses, and the fight leads to its deadly conclusion the only way it could. This fight has the potential to ripple into the future of the franchise, as the post-credits scene teases Akira going after Kane as revenge for the death of her father. Wick vs. John Wick directly squares off against Kane twice in Chapter 4. Alongside Cassian, Kamen from Chapter 2, Kane is one of the only characters in the series to go head-to-head with John and live to tell the tale. Their second showdown is the duel at La Basilique du Sacre-Cœur, which is too slow and methodical to really be considered an action sequence. Their first showdown is where the sparks really fly. I in the Osaka Continental, after John and Kane have both dispatched dozens of their respective adversaries separately. The two finally come face to face in the same display room where John earlier put a pair of nunchucks to good use. The friendly history between them is apparent, as they do not really wish to hurt each other,